Larry,
What's up, man?
hey, how's my audio?
Yours is fine. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound great. I have these wireless ones, so I never really know if it's too low or too high.
No, it sounds good on my end.
All right, perfect. What about the light?
Oh, the
Is it
light.
too?
No, I love the setup. I love all the decks in the background.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah. I gotta invest in one of these ring lights because I have one of these like reading lights I got on Amazon that you can like adjust the brightness, but it's just like this long rod thing. It's not like a ring.
Yeah, I inherited this ring light from my sister, and it's funny because I never use it really, and I'm like, just because with this situation, like
Right.
you can only do evenings. I totally understand. You're going to school,
Yeah, yeah.
and we'll talk about that too. But like, oh, let me try this thing because the natural light in my room is just horrible. And
Yeah.
like, and here the sun's already almost down completely.
Oh
And
yeah, I mean it's pretty dreary over here too, so
yeah, um, yeah. So I'm like, well, I'll just, normally I have like a microphone and stuff, but I'm like, I started out using these things. So
I like those better than the earbuds.
the wireless ones.
Oh, sorry. No. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like the wired ones better than the wireless because if you want to like whisper, you can like whisper into the microphone, but you can't really like whisper to somebody wearing the wireless ones.
Yeah, no, because like when I have the wireless ones and when I tried them, I just did like a little test. I was like, oh, that sounds horrible. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound as good. It sounds like there's way more of an echo
Right.
in the but and then I got to worry about them dying and stuff. So
Yeah.
um, I like to I like to start off by like telling everyone how I discovered them.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
that's
hit me.
just because this is kind of also a get to know you thing too. But I don't know. Of course, like I've always loved comedy. Why I've always loved watching like stand up and stuff like that. Like the bigger guys. Like I remember watching a George Carlin special like back in the '90s on HBO. I don't remember which one it was, but I was really little. I was in like third grade then. I
Yeah.
probably shouldn't have been watching it, but I was.
Did you have divorced parents? Because that's my
Oh
introduction
yeah.
to comedy was just
Mhm.
going over to my dad's house on the weekends and just watching like Premium Blend and all the Comedy Central present specials,
Yeah,
after hours.
my parents got divorced when I was 9. I was little.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was probably
I was four, not to brag.
hey, nobody's bragging,
Yeah, yeah,
no, but yeah, like and then when the pandemic hit, I don't know why, I was just like, I was turned on to Tuesdays with Stories,
yeah.
and I have checked out literally every comic I hear them mention, and I've liked all of them.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean,
So
I tell Mark all
that's
the time. I'm like, every time you mention a story that I'm part of, I'll get a bunch of new followers from basically just you saying my name. And it means a lot because I've had people come out to my shows just because he's told a story that I'm
yeah,
in.
because it's like I kind of like in high school, like I like I like music a lot, and like I like discovering indie bands and like bands that aren't as like mainstream,
Yeah,
and I kind of like view it like as kind of like the same thing. I just kind of went down like a wormhole and like, oh well, they mentioned this comic, and I'd like watch whatever they have on Instagram or whatever. Like, man,
yeah.
why don't they have like a this or that, and because this may be controversial, but I've said this before in one of my previous ones, but I think about 90% of what's on Netflix is just horse shit.
It really is, and I mean, I am not sitting at those boardrooms, with a
Yeah.
bunch of other suits making the decisions, but I know that they have an agenda to fill. They have to meet certain criteria, and I don't know. I mean, as a comedy festival producer myself, I definitely like to cater all the shows to appeal to everybody. So I get it, but it should be funny first. Obviously, that should be the rule.
Yeah, like and again, I'm just a fan of the stuff. I'm no expert, but I know what makes me laugh. And
Right.
I was sitting there one day on Netflix, and I'm like, I'd start, and I won't name any specific things, and not like a large amount of people listen to this yet. It'll get there. It'll get there. These things
Of
take a while.
course,
These things
consistency
take a
is
while,
key.
yeah. And but no, like I'd be sitting, I'd chuckle every now and then, but nothing like aside from like uh anything Seinfeld has on there, or Dave Chappelle. Like I like they have that the series The Degenerates, where there's like a different, like that's good stuff. I like that stuff and the comedians one, but like the other stuff I'm just kind of I'm like you know. And
yeah, like all this stuff on Netflix, like the stand-ups, the Degenerates, the 15-minute comedy lineup, like those are great comics, but it's like, why can't each of those people have their own Netflix special instead of giving them a 15-minute or a 28-minute thing, you know, instead of giving, you know, some YouTuber an hour special? It's crazy.
Yeah, you know, and I'm still learning a lot. Like I feel like I've just been living under a rock. Like I've just like discovered, like I said, it's like open, like just like the floodgate. Like there's just all these great comics out, and I'm just like, why isn't this person like huge? Like it makes no sense because I'm like laughing hysterically.
Yeah,
and
I know.
And you know, like kind of like we we're talking about with the Netflix thing about, I guess they have a certain formula or whatever, but and I'll get into I have notes on the side too. I try to be somewhat prepared, but
now you're doing good.
And at the Wall Street Theater show that I live streamed, that was pretty fun actually. You know, I mean, except you guys couldn't hear me laughing, but
yeah, that show was interesting. I don't even think Mark told that story on the podcast, but it was just basically in an old theater, and everybody was all spread out in the theater, you know, socially distanced. Everyone was wearing masks. They didn't serve alcohol, so nobody was like lubed up, ready to laugh. And they were, but it was like weird because there was like 4 cameras on you in your head. You know that it's being live streamed all over the world. And it was just a little awkward. Like you'd get applause breaks during like the most random times. It was almost like there was an applause sign there. But it looked good at home.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good quality. I was like, because I've watched live stream like concerts before.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wonder how this is going to go. And it was cool. They had like because that was one of my questions. Like, what was it like? Or like cameras? Just like, cause I know there was different angles where cameras just like in your face the whole time. And there's just.
Yeah. And I'm not used to that. I mean, they were not in your face, but you can kind of like, you know, you can see like the red lights, you know, in the distance, and you can see the camera guys kind of illuminated. I don't do TV, so I'm not used to like having all that, you know, if you fuck up, then, you know, a few hundred people all over the world are watching it. So that's kind of in the back of your head. But, you know, a guy like Mark who's done late night a million times, he's a little more used to it.
Yeah. But I was going to mention one thing he said, going back to the Netflix thing. He's like, oh, if I was, you know, and I'm not going to repeat it just because that's not how I am. There's like certain things. I mean, I can cut out stuff, but he said, you know, if I was this and I had these zingers, I'd have a special on Netflix. Yeah. And I busted out laughing because he's 100% right.
Yeah.
And I've heard him say too, like, it's gotta be about, you know, being funny first. Like it shouldn't matter like what color, race, you know, whatever. Like if you're funny, you're funny.
Yeah. I think there's just something where you want to be, you know, the network or the service that's known for giving opportunities to, you know, people who society thinks don't get opportunities, and that's true to an extent, but it's being funny is secondary to that point.
Yeah,
I feel like. And but you can't sit there, and you just gotta keep being funny, and hopefully you get the opportunity eventually. So yeah, that's it.
I mean, yeah, I just you know, it's like when I started listening to comedy again, I'm like, man, I just heard about like, what's all this? What are they talking about when they talk about like cancel culture and all this stuff? And then of course, all I have to do is listen to podcasts and watch, you know, and I'm just like, oh my God.
I know it's too much. Cancel culture, even the talk of cancel culture is becoming hack now. It's like, we gotta acknowledge it. It's the elephant in the room, and just, you know, keep writing jokes and try to preserve the art form and not let it, you know, drown in a midst of, you know, all these apps like TikTok and YouTube and whatever. But hey, that's
and I'm not even a comedian, but I don't want to be hacked just by bringing it up. But like, I'm just like, you know, I remember it's just weird. It's like now it's like everybody has to watch what they say, and it's ridiculous. Like,
yeah, you either watch what you say if you have any aspirations to do like network TV or whatever, or you just lean into it and go hard however you want. And that's those are the two polar opposites. It's like you have to do one or the other. If you're towing the line between trying to censor yourself and being edgy or whatever, then there's no place for you. It's like, say whatever you want, and fuck the industry. Who cares what they think? I don't care if I ever get these jobs. Or you have to, you got to button it up a little bit and, hope that the industry likes you. So it's one or the other, I feel like.
Yeah, I'd be kind of a little more like concerned if, I was doing that, but it still just makes no sense. And I'm just like, if you're going to go to like a comedy show and get offended, then you shouldn't be there. Like,
exactly.
But that's the way I look at it. I mean, or at least do your research, like, because like I went to aside from the live stream, I went to see Mark and Chris Allen in Arlington.
Oh yeah, is that where you got the Chris Allen T-shirt?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's cleaning up on those things.
But they were distanced pretty good, and I mean, I thought I was just like, I had my mask off, I was drinking a beer like once it started.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said about like being like lubed up and everything, like I was gonna laugh anyways, but I mean, like, and in between I'd put it on, but it's just I wish it could have been in like normal circumstances.
Yeah,
like
I think the age of like intimate comedy it's not over for sure. It's going to come back, but I feel like that's what we're all craving. We've all done these socially distant shows outdoors, and it's like it's filling the void, but there's nothing like the masks off, everybody's drinking, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow. That's what we miss.
Yeah, I've only been to one. It's crazy because like the one in Arlington was like only my second in-person comedy show ever.
Yeah.
And then like probably a decade before that, I was married once a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and we went to we went to the Funny Bone in Richmond.
Okay.
And I don't remember who was there, but I just remember it being a really small room.
Was it in a strip mall?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the funny bones are in like malls. They're pretty sad places.
Well, I mean, that was like my first experience with it. I have no clue it was there. Yeah, but just going to like what you said about shorter, everybody, it was like a sardine can. Everybody was just like packed in.
Oh yeah.
And it was so great because it's like, if 10 people were laughing, it like sounded like 50.
Yep.
50 people were laughing.
Yeah.
When you're talking about outdoor shows, I wanted to ask you about I had seen pictures before I discovered you of the Rhode Island Comedy Festival, and I didn't realize that you started that.
Yeah, I'm from Rhode Island, and there's only one club there in Providence, but I live where I'm from is like 40 minutes south of Providence in Newport, which is like a small island town, and it's very popular. Like it's a tourist destination. A lot of bars, beaches, restaurants, that kind of thing. So it's far enough away from the Comedy Connection in Providence to where I decided to start producing my own shows. And I started doing like a monthly show that would sell out every month because there was no other comedy in town. And then I just decided, because it was so easy to sell tickets, I would just try to do multiple shows in one weekend and call it a festival. And we started that back in 2015. And now, 6 years later, we just did our 6th year during the pandemic outdoor at a vineyard in Newport. So we're trying to grow it every year, obviously, aside from last year. But yeah.
I didn't realize it had been going that long. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's something that's the best and worst thing I ever started. It's a lot of work and it's a headache at times, but it's very rewarding seeing all the shows fill up and all the comics have a great time, and all the positive feedback I get from it is makes it worth it.
So what is it? Is it just 2 separate days, or is it more than 2 days?
Yeah, it started as 4 days and then we extended to 5 days. A couple years ago we had 5 days, 16 shows. 5 venues, and like 72 comics.
Wow.
So yeah, we've grown it a little bit. You know, we have a hotel sponsor, so we put the headliners up in the hotels, and I get like a big Airbnb house for the other comics that come in from out of town. And you know, we get beer sponsors, wine sponsors, food sponsors. So it's just a giant comedy party for the whole weekend. It's like a holiday, you know, as opposed to a lot of other festivals or contestivals, if you will, are, you know, have this competitive atmosphere where it's like there's judges and it's a contest, and it doesn't really create the vibe that I wanted. So
That does, dude, that does sound like a lot of work.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have a great team to help me. You know, I don't know how to do any like technical graphic design stuff. So my one of my best friends, Katie Latimer, she's like, you know, she's my marketing person and my savior with this, because she does the website, the tickets, the graphics, everything.
So you like sell T-shirts and all that stuff too? Like
we do have T-shirts. We just set up a little merch table just for the formality of it, so it looks professional. But you know, maybe we sell 6 shirts over the course of the weekend, and we just give the rest to the volunteers that help out and the comics in their little swag bags. But yeah, we just try to make it a very comedian friendly festival, because if the comics are having fun, that's going to translate on stage, and then the audience is going to have fun. I've had people, patrons come back every year, and they travel from out of state to come for the festival. So that is awesome hearing when people are like, oh, we came last year and the year before that, and we drove up from, you know, New York or down from Vermont. And that's awesome.
Well, like I'm looking to start a new tradition. So if you're planning on doing it this year, then I'll 100% make plans to come.
Oh, hell yeah, man. I'll give you a little press pass.
Well, because, man, that sounds official.
Yeah.
That Rhode Island, that can't be that far from Virginia.
It's a good drive, but Chris did it. Chris, he came up with Alex Castaigne, and he drove up for 2 days. And
so do you have it like the same time frame every year, like in October?
Yeah, every Columbus Day weekend, or Indigenous Peoples Weekend. I don't know what's called anymore, but that the holiday weekend, every October we do it, because we can get away with selling tickets on Sunday, because everybody typically has the Monday off, or a lot of people have the Monday off. So we can sell out shows the whole weekend.
I love the setting. At least it looked. Now, this is a totally dumb question, but do you have it at the same place every year? And just because of this year, it changed to outside just because of the situation, or does that make sense at all? Like, yeah,
I mean, last year because of the pandemic, we couldn't do it anywhere inside. I was a month away from canceling it, or I should say a couple of days away from canceling it. We decided to do it a month before the festival, like 4 weeks out. I texted one of my friends who owns this vineyard in Newport, who's been our sponsor since the first year. And I noticed that at his vineyard, he's been doing like these jazz nights, socially distant outdoors. And I was like, hey, buddy, how would you like to do a couple of comedy shows? I just wanted to do like 2 shows just to like call it a festival so we can keep it consistent. And he was like, yeah, you can do as many shows as you want. So I said, all right, how about 5? And we did 1 show Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. And they all sold out in like a week and a half. It was great. But typically we use a lot of bars, restaurants, theaters in Newport, but we couldn't. But hopefully everything goes back to normal this October.
Like I loved the pictures that I saw. Like it was kind of like under like a tent, like how the lights were. Just the vibe was just so cool.
Oh, that tent was the lifesaver. We weren't even going to do it under the tent. We were going to do it like on their little wine terrace, which is much, much smaller. And then last minute, he was like, you know what, maybe I'll rent a giant tent, because after the festival, they do like wedding receptions and stuff at the vineyard. So he's like, I'll just keep the tent up. He's like, I could sell this, you know, space for thousands of dollars for wedding receptions. He's like, I'll just get it like a week early and you guys could do it under there. And I was like, thank you, God. So we could fit way more people, and it just looked so beautiful. They had like the bistro lights hanging. So the atmosphere was so cool. Such a beautiful location. We really lucked out. Everything kind of fell into place.
Bistro lights, that's what they're called. I'm like, maybe I should know that, because I've been to a few vineyards and wineries and stuff, but I just,
Yeah. It was kind of funny because, not funny, actually, it was awful. There's like a dimmer switch because you could like dim those bistro lights in the tent. So it like created this awesome, like little dim, intimate atmosphere. So
Yeah.
I had a spotlight that requires a lot of voltage, wattage, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I'm not an electrician, but I took the spotlight and put it in the back, and I plugged it into the same outlet that the dimmer switch was plugged in, that the dimmer was plugged, and the fuse and the spotlight blew the first night. So we didn't have a spotlight for the first 2 nights because I stupidly plugged it into the dimmer. But one night, like Joe List came up on the Saturday of the festival and to headline 2 shows, and he's awesome. He killed it. But the wind was, I'm not even kidding, like it was like 35-mile-an-hour winds, and the wind was like going through into the microphone and like coming out of the receivers, the speakers, and you could hear the wind come out. So that was awful. We didn't have sides to the tent. But what are you going to do? At least we had the shows.
That it's still like, I don't know, like that just seems like it just appears like a very relaxed environment. Like I just saw the pictures. I was like, man, I want to be there right now. Like that just looks like so much fun. It's
so much fun. Don't get me wrong. Everybody had a great time. The audience, they were laughing, and the comics had a great time. But as the producer, I'm sitting in the back, like having mini panic attacks when like the smallest things aren't going to plan. But that's just how, you try to run things smoothly by panicking. So, to fix it.
Like I've never really been that much of a traveler, but like I'm just gonna have to start like I used to do when I go to see like concerts and stuff. I'm just gonna have to start traveling out of state to go to cool outdoor comedy shows. That's just what I'm gonna have to start doing, because all the fun stuff is not in Virginia, or at least
I mean, maybe, who knows. I heard that everyone's moving to Austin and Nashville, and those are like going to be the new comedy towns. LA is pretty much, it's beautiful there, but there's no indoor dining, no indoor anything there. And New York is, it's slowly but surely climbing. But now that it's winter, there's nothing open.
Yeah, I just got back from I went with my cousin to Vegas for 4 days, like literally the day after Christmas. I'm like, sure, whatever. Yeah. And it's just like a free for all there, man. Like, really? But I mean, everybody had their masks on, but it's just like, I'd never been there. I've only been on the West Coast twice my entire life. And, I didn't know weed was legal there. Like, I didn't know you could just walk down the street with a drink in your hand.
Yeah.
And it is crazy. I'm just like, whoa, this is going to take getting used to. I'm like, nobody's looking at me. This is weird.
Yeah. The cops have bigger fish to fry than somebody walking down the street with a yard slushy drink.
But it was fun though. But I walked by and saw like where the Laugh Factory is, and I've always heard about it.
Yeah.
And, but and I've only been to New York once. I went up there for the day, and it ended up being shitty weather. It was raining. It was cold. Didn't even stay the whole day and just drove back. I'm like, man, this sucks.
Yeah, that's the love-hate relationship people have with the city. Is it's charming and it's beautiful at times, but then it just, you see in the movies, the guy standing on the sidewalk in a taxi cab goes through the puddle and they get all muddy, and he's holding flowers and the flowers wilt over. That's like half of living here too, metaphorically. And
that like really happens.
Yeah, that happens regularly, I'm sure.
When this probably should have been one of the first things I asked, but when did you decide you wanted to like do comedy, or like was there a specific event in your life that was like, oh, maybe I should try this?
Well, I mean, I decided I wanted to do comedy several years before I actually did it. I think most comics don't really just impulsively try it. I think they either have an affinity for it early on, and they kind of takes them a little while to get the balls to get up on stage, or, find a spot where you can do it. You have no idea how to network. You don't know how to ask. You don't really know anything about comedy or the industry. So, like I said, I'm from a small town that didn't have a scene. So my introduction to it was seeing an ad in a local newspaper for a comedy class at a casino. And at the time, you don't know that comedy classes are usually kind of a waste of money because you can't be taught how to be funny. You can be taught the etiquette of comedy, moving the mic stand out of the way when you take it out of the holster, how to like say thank you, good night, basic stuff, but or maybe how to structure a simple joke, setup, punchline. So I took the class, and it was me and like just 3 other people. It was a very small class, so which was to my benefit because then the instructor, who's this old school veteran road dog comic, could spend more time with you, and but it really just takes going to open mics and just failing and falling on your face a lot and bombing. That's how you become a better comic, not by taking a class.
Yeah, and I've had several people tell me like, yeah, like you just can't be taught that. Like you said, you can be taught the basics, but you can't be taught how to be funny. Yeah, like it's just.
If you feel like you need the guidance to take a class, you really have no idea, then take it by all means. There's some great comedy instructors out there that are well-respected comedians. But so that's how I decided to do it. And before I did my first show, I had like 2 notebooks filled with material.
Wow.
But it was like horrible material. It wasn't even like, it was just thoughts. And what I would do is I would deliver the material into my computer microphone and like record myself as if I was performing on stage, and I would like pause for laughs, which is the worst habit to get into when you're new, because you're just assuming that all of your punchlines are going to get these like 2 to 3 second laughs, applause breaks. So then when you finally get on stage, you're just like, yeah, so anyway, you ever have your girlfriend go through your phone and then you feel like you're, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible? And then the whole audience is like, no, that's not, I don't get it. So that's a bad habit you have to break, is waiting for laughs.
Wow. Yeah. That's just something I can't imagine. Like, just because in high school, like I was in a few bands and like I have incredible stage fright. Mm-hmm. And even when we would play, I'd still be like petrified, like every time. But once we'd start and get in the kind of the groove, then I'd be okay. Like once I get up and actually do it, but still I'd be like, oh my God, my heart would be pounding.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst feeling. I mean, even now, I've been doing it 11 years and still before I go on stage, there's still that slight, it's more, anticipation rather than fear, but you just want to get up there. But there's this weird phenomenon that happens once you get on stage, your nerves kind of subside. And if you're new, the first cigarette burn is the worst. Obviously, you have no idea what it feels like to get on stage. But once you do it the first time, it's kind of it's easier from there on out.
Is it kind of normally like, I know in my life, in any kind of personal situation, I'm always like I tend to blow things out of proportion in my head. And I'm always like, oh, it's going to be this way. And I'm like, just impending doom. And like, when I get to that, I'm like, it's never as bad as I project that it's going to be. Right. And that's to be said about both ways. Sometimes you think like, oh my God, I'm going to the show. You hear that it's sold out ahead of time and you're like, oh, I'm going to kill. This is going to be a sold out show. And then you get there and it's like, collectively the whole sold out room is like, no, they don't, your first joke doesn't hit and then you bomb and you're like, wow, you went up there guns blazing and just fell flat on your face. Or there's the shows you go and you're like, oh, this is going to be a hell gig. It's in a field, everyone's sitting on hay bales, and that's the best show of the year. So it's and you didn't record that one and you're like, damn it. So you never know with comedy. That's the exciting part of it, is it's a mystery box every time you step on stage. I love hearing and like asking like the behind the scenes type questions, because I always wonder just how all this stuff works, just because I'm so fascinated with it. Because a few other comics have told me like, like they'll say for this club or this venue, these jokes will do amazing, then they'll go somewhere else and then they'll just flop.
Oh yeah.
And it's all like a, I guess, case by case basis. Like it.
True. And that's where you become a little more comfortable with bombing, because that the jokes work. So you're not really like, some comics will get a little down on themselves and be like, oh, well, I'm questioning my whole act now. It's like, well, no, those jokes are tried and true. They're bulletproof. You've used them before. They've killed numerous times. And it's just that each audience is like, it's like one organism. If they decide they don't like you early on, they're not gonna, the whole crowd's not gonna like you, you know. But you need a few good laughers throughout. But yeah, you can't let one show judge, you know, how you do, because it's just a fluke.
Yeah, it's you know, you said consistency is key. Like that's my big dream was to, like, you know, be a rock star, and the odds of that happening are just, you know, very, very, very slim. But like once I got into like playing music and stuff, I'm like, well, and like just playing in front of people, like it gave me a rush of like adrenaline.
Yeah.
Even though I was still like in a shell, you know,
Yep.
I'm just kind of off to the side doing my own thing, but it was still kind of cool when people would applaud and say, "Oh, that was awesome." And that at the same time, you know, I remember our very first show, like it was horrendous. Like it was horrible. Like, and I'm just like, there was barely anybody there, and they weren't standing close to the stage. Like it sucked.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between, I guess, music and comedy, obviously, is just like the instant validation throughout your set, as opposed to music, where it's like, yeah, maybe people are dancing and cheering throughout the song, but usually you get the clapping and wooing when the song ends, and that's kind of your cue, like, oh, all right, we did a good job. You know, or that's just, you know, the etiquette of when a song ends, you clap. But the laughs throughout a set is like definitely validation, because you can't, like, eliciting laughter out of somebody, let alone a group of strangers in a room at the same time at one of your dumb thoughts, is like, it's the best feeling. And it fills a void that many comedians have. And I think that's why we, you know, we keep doing it, because we need to keep our tank full of, you know, I don't know, self-worth.
So do you, like when it comes like writing your stuff, do you just draw from like things that have actually happened in your life, or can it be just like, oh, you might see something wild on the street when you're out and about, or like is it a mixture of everything? Or
For me, it's a mixture of everything. I never really know how to respond to that question when somebody's like, what kind of comedy do you do, or what type of jokes do you tell? And it's like, I mean, there's observational, there's, you know, childhood, nostalgia, one-liners, topical. It's a mixed bag. And there are comics who kind of stick to one brand, and maybe they develop their audience based on that. But I don't like to be pigeonholed into one thing. And
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's more fun to write with different goals in mind with the joke. But like a guy like Sam Morrill, like that guy, and Mark, like they have a thing that they have like honed over the years, and it's so good and it's so consistent. And that's like what a lot of comics aspire to be. So, I mean, I've been doing it 11 years, like I said, and I can safely say that I'm still trying to learn what, you know, my voice or how I want to deliver jokes. So
what it's like, I like a good mix of everything. I'm not big on like really long drawn out stories.
right.
But I like just straight jokes, or if you're telling like a quick story, okay, you know, but I mean, like if I've got to sit there for like 5 minutes, like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Not that they're not funny, but
Right. And
even like a lot of the stuff like you did was quick, at least. I mean, and that's the only time I've seen you was on that live stream, you know? So, I mean, like I technically was there, but like when you, I actually surprisingly, I bought the ticket, right, and it said you have up till 7 days after to rewatch it. Well, it's still available, so I rewatched it right before this.
Oh, it's still available?
Yeah, for me it is. For me it is to just watch it, and the first one that stuck out to me was when you talked about buying the 2 copies of Annie.
Yeah.
And I was crying, man, because like, no, did that really happen?
Well, I'll tell you the origin of that joke. My friend Katie, who I do the festival with, she's got kids, and this is where comedy, like people are like, did that really happen? Is that a real story? It's a real story. It didn't actually happen to me, but she's not a comic, and she told me the story, and I was like, that is so funny. So I just took like the pieces of the story, her going to Walmart and trying to find the movie Annie, and it was like a black, employee that was helping her, and gave her the 2 copies. Oh, we have the original or the remake with the black Annie. And she ended up just buying both copies of Annie because she was filled with guilt. So I just kind of repackaged it into a bit.
She didn't want the employee thinking a certain thing of her, and
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I guess you could say it's an observational thing that on her part that or a story on her part that I kind of developed into a bit. But that's the beauty of like talking with friends or bouncing jokes with comics, is like you can have an idea for a bit, or somebody could give you spark an idea that you would never see coming by yourself. So like, every time I'm in the car with Mark, he's always like, or Sam, back in the day, one time I was on the road with Maril, and we're driving down the road to actually we're driving to North Carolina to do one of Chris Allen's shows, and he would just like turn the radio down and be like, all right, what do you got? And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like driving the car. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you got any jokes, any premises? And I'm like coming up with something on the spot. And I would just like look through my phone and be like, all right, I got this. And then he would just instantly have like a line for you. And it's just amazing what just bouncing bits with other comics can do. It's so productive, and it's so crucial to the writing process.
And it can kind of like trigger like a switch in your brain. Like, oh, I never thought of that.
Even if they don't give you the actual line you use, they could just say something that makes you think of the funniest line. So it's just getting the wheels turning and brainstorming with other people, because you get so, when you're by yourself, sometimes you start getting desperate and you start reaching. You're like, oh, let me Google the news today and see if there's anything funny. Or, you're looking around, you're like, Christmas tree. What's a funny joke about, so if you force it, it's much harder to come, rather than like when you're bouncing it with other people.
It's just always, since I've been like, I'm watching something stand up related every day, and it's just like, I just have like, what's the word? This is a very big word, but astronomical amount of like respect for like you and anybody that does it. Cause like I'm not going to say everybody does this, but I know that you and people like you, Mark, like all of them work really hard, and you're doing it all the time. And like, I'm just like, man, I wish, like, I've been told I'm funny before, but I'm like, I wish I like had like the balls to like do something like that, because like, that seems like it just seems like a lot of fun. And I'm just like, man, I always wonder, like, how did they come up with that? How did they write that? Like, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's very rare that you have an idea for a bit and it like kills the first time. It happens, but then like you got to listen back to your set after you do it, because a lot of people, they'll try a joke and then they'll change it too early when it worked early on. But yeah, it's really it's a whole process. It doesn't come together with a bow on it immediately. You have to really kind of tweak it and workshop it. It can take a long time,
That's what I've heard, the simple things like just removing 2 words and changing the order of some words. And that just blows my mind. It's kind
adding an extra beat between the setup and the punchline can make all the difference, or just adding one extra tag. If a joke kind of fizzled out, adding like one extra little punch after the original punchline can just really enhance it. So it's definitely an art, and trying to, it's like using colors. You're trying to like find the right combination of colors to make the laugh.
Now, like this is going to be a totally ignorant question, and I'm surprised. I'm actually blown that I haven't asked any comic this before, but like I always hear like, so the beginning of the joke is the premise, or is that just the idea behind it? Like if you wouldn't mind, for me and anybody who would be listening, like explain like what a tag is. And I feel so retarded right now.
No, there's definitely an anatomy of a joke.
I hear those terms all the time, like a tag. Add a tag at the end, add another, add a tag here. I hear that all the time. I'm just like, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, it's a lot of shop talk for comics, but like the premise is like the idea for the joke. The angle is how you are going after that premise. So like, a premise, something like, Joe Biden being old and that he's going to die, and Kamala Harris is going to be president. Like, that's a premise that thousands of comics have, right? The angle is how you attack, is Kamala gonna, poison his food, or is she gonna, I don't know, blow up his house? I have no idea. But like, it's the angle is how you attack the joke, which way you go. Then you have the setup. So that's just using the least amount of words that serve the punchline. So a lot of comics, they make the mistake of getting too wordy, and they start adding extra fluff into it, and it doesn't serve the end of the joke. So you have your setup, and many times the punchline is like a misdirect, like you don't see it coming. And that's what kind of elicits the laughter. But there's also a different type of punchline, which is more predictable, where the audience can see it coming, but you're rewarding them by delivering it. They want you to say the punchline because they can see it in the, like a nostalgic joke. They want you to say it. So you get the laugh because you're saying something they want. And then the tag is just like, they're like little mini punchlines after the first punchline. So
after the big punchline.
Right. And like Mark has a ton of those. Joe List, he's got, their tag machines. And you do that, and it enhances the joke. And it can lead into the next thing too.
So it's kind of like the, I guess so the premise is the idea, and then that has nothing to do with actually writing words, and the angles, how you're going to go about getting to the joke. And then the punchline is like actually writing it, or sort of.
Yeah. The setup is how you get to the punchline, and the punchline is the payoff. And then the tag is just like, if the punchline works, then you're also rewarding the audience with more tags to that joke. They're hungry for. Yeah.
Sorry, the setup is what I forgot. That's like the beginning of it, correct?
Yes.
Like, as far as like the writing process.
Right. That's the foundation. Okay. You need that part. And the worst thing is when you're telling a joke and you forget to say like a critical part of the setup that leads to the punchline. If you miss like one word, the punchline doesn't work at all. So that's why the setup is the most important part, because even if you screw up the punchline, the audience kind of like, they're like, I knew where he was going with that because the setup was on point. But if you miss the setup, then the punchline doesn't make any sense.
So that can totally derail the whole thing.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So like, for example, the Annie joke that you were talking about.
Yeah.
The setup is I went to Walmart to buy the movie Annie on DVD, and the woman comes up to me and she says, well, we have, the original version of Annie or the remake with the black Annie. So the punchline is, so I bought 2 copies of Annie, and that usually gets a laugh. And a tag to that is, she loves every Annie. All Annies matter to her. So that's the tag. And then another tag is, so I bought 2 Jamie Foxx versions and then left. So it's just like you have the original, and then you can tag it as far as you want until it kind of fizzles out. But, you don't want to, beat it into the ground too hard.
Well, that's okay. Well, thank you for explaining that to me. Cause like, I think I know what that word means. Cause like, I'm always listening to podcasts or watching them, and I always hear tag, setup. I know what a punchline is, but I mean like more so like tag, premise, and by definition, I'm not completely stupid. I know what the word premise means. Just like in the terms of like jokes, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's basically just when I put it in my phone, I have an idea for a joke. I put it in my notepad in my phone, and it's just, a list of premises. And when you're going to an open mic or you're trying out a new bit, sometimes all you have is the premise, and you're going up there and you're just working it out on stage. A lot of comics, they don't write their jokes. They work out the premise on stage and see where it goes, and listen back to it and see where they can edit it. So that's kind of what I've been doing, but that's more so because I can be lazy and procrastinate and not write as much as I should. But, you just gotta, the more you write, the more you can workshop it a little bit better and use the right word choices.
I love procrastinating.
It's my greatest pastime.
I'm a recovering procrastinator. Oh, that's
Yeah. Are you
but
wearing
yeah,
are you wearing flannel pajama pants?
yeah, I am.
Hell yeah, man. I'm wearing some gray sweats myself.
Awesome. I tried not to make him visible, but I've been found out.
It's Sunday, man. Who cares?
But yeah, I'm like,
Sunday.
I'm gonna be comfortable.
Yeah, me too. Even though
Um,
I'm sitting on like a workout bench. I'm like leaning on it, like Burt Reynoldsing it over here.
the one of the other jokes, and the thing is, I don't even remember. I don't want to mess it up, but when you talked about Cabin in the Woods,
Yeah.
I was laughing because you're like, how are all these people gonna get off for vacation at the same time? And
Yeah.
I just thought that was so funny. Like, I was like,
They,
I'm like, how do you come up with that? Because like I actually watched that movie recently for the first time, which is why I laughed so hard.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That I mean, I see all the joke was about like me being in my 30s and how like when I watch horror movies now, it's like I can't believe it. It's all bullshit, you know. And it's like Cabin in the Woods. It's about 7 friends that are on this weekend camping trip, and I'm like the most unbelievable part is that 7 friends have the same weekend off in this economy, and that's I don't know why I thought of that, but I was like, that's just like such an old guy thought to have. Is like, come on, that's bullshit. I can't get 2 friends to come on one of my comedy shows on the weekend.
That's I mean, what did you think of the movie? I have to ask.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun little ride. It definitely threw you for a loop, and it was confusing at times, but
Yeah.
it was just, I don't know. It's got like a cult following, and I don't know.
Yeah, I was very because I had heard some things about it, and I was like, I'm like, oh, it's on Prime, let me watch it. I was like, okay, this is a little confusing. I'm like, all right, there's these guys in a control room. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then the whole thing at the end with all the different monsters, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, it just got so wacky at the end.
Yeah, I know. And I think that's why that goes into the bit as well. Cause I like say like, oh, they're all killed by robot zombies, a giant squid monster and a bunch of ghosts. And I'm like, by the end of the movie, I was like, yeah, right. I can't believe that, 7 friends have the same weekend off. So jokes.
That's now. Do you now you can is that like the how do I word this? So could
That's the
you
misdirect.
okay? So could you easily like? Are there any other like movies that you've thought about maybe coming up with material based on a movie or something you saw in a movie or do
Yeah,
you?
I mean, there's kind of that whole genre of joke writing where it's like over analyzing things. Like I forgot which comic it was. I think List talked about this on a podcast one time, a long time ago. And I thought it was so funny. I don't know whose joke it is, so I'm not going to do it justice, but like the whole joke is that like Forrest Gump is like, he's telling in the movie, Forrest Gump is like jerking off and he's doing all this like crazy sexual stuff with Jenny. And you realize like, oh, he's sitting on a park bench telling an old lady this whole story. And I didn't set up the joke right, but just that reveal of like, oh yeah, he is sitting on a park bench just telling this old woman, all the story, but he is, special needs. So
Yeah, I don't like I've lately what I like to do is like if I'm watching just something crazy, like and this I don't know if this makes me like a bad person, but I'll turn on like train wreck type like reality shows just to like make fun of them.
oh yeah,
And
I'm well aware.
and it's just like my friend and I just go back and forth just roasting everything we see or just I don't know. That's what I'm doing for entertainment these days. I mean, because it's like I rewatched the entire, well, no, 2 episodes left. Rewatched the entire series of Seinfeld from the beginning,
Oh wow.
and only got 2 episodes left. And I remember watching it. I remember watching the final season when it was airing on TV. But I was much younger than I am now. But I'd never actually seen it all from the beginning.
Either have I, and I'll admit something. I haven't even seen all the seasons. I've seen them sporadically, out of order. Because even when I was young, they weren't. They were playing. Like it was still on the air. I remember like in in elementary school, my teachers would be quoting it, when you'd overhear them talking. But I would just watch it like, the reruns.
Yeah, that was pretty much me too, because I know there was one channel like it would show it like every night 2 or 3 times in a row.
Yeah,
and
it still holds up though. That's what's so great about the show is it's timeless and it's situational, and a lot of just the uncomfortable like interpersonal interactions still they happen every day, and that's why it's so brilliant.
And it's I get like, it's so funny because like I get defensive when somebody like says, "Oh, it's not a good show." I'm like, "You shut your mouth."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You just don't," and I'm like, and I feel like either, somebody loves it or they just don't like it. There's no like in between, like, "Oh, I think it's okay."
Yeah. And like, even though I think it's such a great show, but I don't knock anybody that hates it. Cause like at the end of the day, comedy is the most subjective thing. Like, you can't, even when we were talking about before, like, oh, Netflix is just putting out garbage, but that garbage is like gold to somebody else, which, is a little sad, but, it's all subjective. And I wish there could be like a standardized way to measure funny. And I think that would never happen. But I was talking to Mark about this, like there should be a device that like, you can record your set and it measures like, your laughs per minute, like how big the laughs are. But then we're thinking like, well, even like the hackiest comics can get like the most uproarious applause and laughter. So with material that's like overdone or whatever. So there's no real way to measure it. You just got to be funny and be original. And that's kind of the golden rules.
Yeah. Like back to the Netflix thing. Like, there was one that I literally watched and I don't even think I laughed at all during the entire thing. I I had like one like light chuckle and was like, well, that's an hour of my life I'm not getting back.
All right. Well, when we stop recording, you can tell me whose it was, but
I'm almost afraid. I'm almost afraid to say anything. I haven't seen every special on Netflix. I've seen a lot of them.
Yeah, careful, Larry. They're gonna pull the plug on this podcast if you if you out them.
Let's just say every comic that I've discovered so far that has been based in New York, I have fallen in love with.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'll leave it at that for the official,
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. Then if it's a West Coast person, yeah, I think the comics here. I mean, it could be a proximity thing. There's so many clubs that are so close together, or just comedy spots in general that you're just taking more practice swings nightly, as opposed to LA where maybe you get on stage 1 or 2 times a night because you got to drive across town from town to town. Here you can just hop on a train and do multiple spots a night. Like Mark he does like 4 or 5 shows a night, or did, which is insane. But
that's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, man. It's I'd say if you want to try it, and then if it's not for you, then you could just say, hey, at least I tried it. You seem to have an affinity for it, and there's plenty of comics out there that are super shy, super awkward, that before they were comics you'd probably never guess in a million years that they have the balls to get up there, but something forced them to do it, whether it's intrinsic or a bet or a dare, or they have nothing else to live for. But just give it a shot one day.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
You're a physical therapy assistant, right?
Yeah. During the day, I work at a nursing home. I am a PTA. So I exercise with old people, and post stroke, heart attack, just generalized weakness, whatever. It's a cornucopia of disabilities and diseases they come in with. But so it's just rehabbing them to get back on their feet, to go home. But I'm in school right now to become an occupational therapist, which is in the same field as physical therapy. It just focuses more on like specific activities, like, somebody's ability to get dressed in the morning, or, brush their teeth, or take a shower, or go to the bathroom. So it's a little more specific. But my goal is to eventually, once I get my master's, I can start working as an OT and just work less hours and have more time to do comedy. So a lot of comics, they don't have day jobs. They just survive off of comedy, which is great. That's the dream. But I don't know. I've over the last decade, I've found a good balance between the two jobs, even though it's kind of a double life. But it supports the life I want to live. And I don't know. I'm not, I would love to be a full-time working comic. That's, maybe the end goal, but right now I'm very content and I'm happy with where I am.
Well, that's cool, man. I was gonna ask, like, I pictured physical therapy. I'm like, man, there's probably you probably see all kinds of stuff doing that. And then I'm like, I just envisioned you like doing physical therapy for like middle-aged people that have maybe like injured themselves or something. Then like, oh, is he, using some of his work experiences and his jokes? And then when you said elderly people, I was like, oh man, now I feel bad for even thinking that.
I used to work at a sports medicine clinic, so I did work with like, the whole lifespan. I had kids, I had, teenagers, athletes, pregnant mothers with back pain, workers' comp cases. But I decided to focus, my work in nursing homes just because it does pay better than, outpatient clinics. But also I love working with old people. They're great. They have funny stories and, they're adorable at times. Some of them are a little sassy.
Yeah, they can be cute, I guess. Like, at least that's what some girls say. Like, oh, these old people are cute.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, there's some therapists that work with kids, like pediatrics, and which is definitely rewarding in its own sense. But I don't know if I could deal with, working with some screaming kids who are running around and I can't tame. At least the old people just sit in their wheelchair. They don't try to run away. Some do. That's a lie. Some try to get out and leave. So you have to put the little anklet around their leg so the alarm goes off. But yeah, man, it's a good job. It's rewarding, and you're right. There is a lot of crazy stuff that happens, but it's almost like you had to be there type story. So I don't really bring a lot of my day job into my comedy because it's like I just like to keep them separate, and not to mention there's already a million like old people jokes out there, and I'm trying not to. So that's territory that I don't even want to go into.
And that makes sense. Before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, like, have you ever thought about, I don't know, maybe getting some, like, I don't know, like I see you like doing like some kind of, I see you like filming something like you gotta put something on YouTube, like a special or something. Cause that's like the rage now.
Yeah.
Get like all the camera guys that Mark uses and like,
I've thought about it. And, when I first started comedy back in 2009, it was like, I mean, there wasn't like a big boom of social media, right? So nobody was really putting a lot of stuff out. Like MySpace was a thing, and Dane Cook made the whole MySpace thing popular, and he was a good, like, people shit on Dane, but he was like a great example early on when I started of how big you can get in comedy using social media. As I'm sure it was a influence for a lot of people, but you still didn't see a lot of comics giving their material away for free on the internet. It was kind of like you didn't want to do that. That was like a no-no to like put your stuff out there without it being on an album or a special. But now it's a free-for-all. Now it's like people are just putting out clips left and right, and they're not even on albums yet. Just because it's so shareable, people want those extra followers, and it's so competitive. So people are like, how come you don't have stuff online? I'm like, I'm just not used to it. And not to mention, I'm trying to put out, if I do put something out, I want it to be like good quality, good audio, good video.
Oh yeah.
So you're right. Maybe I will poach Mark's camera guys and see if we can film something one day.
And I just, and he mentioned like, he outsources a lot of stuff, I mean, just because he knows a lot of people. And I'm no pro, but I just know that, if you get, I know, like, just from doing research, like, you get certain amount of followers and certain X amount of hours your channel's watched, then your channel becomes monetized and you can start putting in ads and start making money.
Yeah, of course. That's, I wish
people donate money to you. And
I know. I feel so guilty, like asking people for money to watch my dumb thoughts on video, but that's the way it's going, and I will do it eventually. I want to finish school first, and
Oh yeah.
and luckily Mark is bringing me on the road a lot to do shows this past year, so I've gotten to flex the comedy muscle without which I definitely feel fortunate and grateful for that, because otherwise I would probably quit, but.
I'm like, and I don't want to feel like I'm like giving you advice or something, but I'm just like, it just seems like all these guys that are putting specials on the YouTube, it's like they're doing very well.
Yeah,
like they're doing very well. I'm like, whoa, I'm very surprised. Like way better than anything on Netflix or Amazon, but we went over that already.
Yeah, people are watching YouTube. That's people have been watching YouTube, and it's crazy that it took this long for people to be like, oh yeah, maybe I will start putting stuff up there. I think it's just so daunting, because like when you don't have any followers, any subscribers, you're like, that's gonna take forever. But then you're gonna like slap yourself in the face and be like, yes, but it's inevitably going to go up. It's not, you can't go in the negative, it's going to grow. So you just have to be consistent and keep putting stuff out, and it'll grow at its own pace. And every once in a while, you'll get a little flash in the pan and you'll get a big spike. So it's a win-win. There's little to no investment. You just gotta be consistent. That's all.
You like talking about like the just the whole YouTube and the being for free thing. I remember I was like, hey, yeah, so I watched your special for free and I loved it. So can I like PayPal you a little? Cause as kind of like a tip for saying like, hey, thanks for making me laugh. Cause like I just didn't feel right watching it for free.
Yeah. Well, that's an extremely nice gesture, and you're definitely a good human for doing that. It probably means a lot to them, and it's not expected, but you're right. I'm sure, like Mark, he tried to, he talks about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
But he wanted to sell his special to, a network or whatever, but he decided, screw it, I'm just going to put it on YouTube. And, at the end of the day, 5 million people watched it, which is probably more than it would have got if it was somewhere else. So,
yeah,
but you're right. I'll do it soon. You convinced me. You pulled my leg.
Well, no. I'm a nobody. Don't take my, no, I'm not going to be the cause of peer pressure for anything. But no, I mean, and there's a few other comics. Like I'd love an album of some sort or something. But again, I know that stuff costs money, and
it's not even that. It's just self-doubt. And, a lot of comics go through it. I go through it. You go, oh, I'm not good enough yet. My hour is not there yet. It's not strung together perfectly. It doesn't have a narrative. It's not. And then, you get other comics who are putting stuff out, and, and you're like, all right, I got to stop putting so much pressure. It might not be perfect. Everybody wants this, perfect album or special or something. And, you just got to do it. I think it's a good way to clean the slate also. Just put it on an album, record it. It's been working for years. Put it on, and that way you can just clean the slate and then rewrite.
This has been a blast, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Thanks for having me, and I wish you the best success with it and hope it grows.
What I'll do is I'll tell you who I was talking about after I'll let you know after.
Just shoot me a message.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Awesome. Life's a bitch.
All right, man. Have a great night, dude. Thanks again.
You too. Thanks, Larry.
Please follow the podcast on all social media at Life's a Bit Pod. If you're listening, please rate and write a review. If you're watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. New episodes every Friday. And remember, it's okay to laugh.